So if you watch the channel every week, which I know some of you do, I just wanted to let you know this is a repeat video. I'm basically updating the end of this, deleting the original, and then reposting it. So the main reason for that is because I left these unfinished because I wasn't finishing them until I moved them permanently to where they were going to go. I didn't really have a timeline for that, so I uploaded the video without these being attached to the sides. And I was just going to upload a third video, but the more I thought about it, it made more sense to completely finish this project versus making people watch a third video to see how I finished it, just for continuity and to make more sense. So if you want to see how I finish it, you could, and you've already saw the beginning, you could fast forward to the end. It's a couple minutes of added footage. One of the things I also decided to do is I put a notch on the edge of all of these. So inevitably when I start getting pests, I could easily attach some corners to these with netting or something like that. If anybody has suggestions to how to deal with pests, I will take those because I'm a little new to this. I already know from a neighbor that squirrels are going to be an issue. So I'll take suggestions on that. But basically, this is a pretty straightforward video of a couple different designs. I have another video using cross laps, which is the boxes behind me, on how to make these DIY planter boxes without using hardware, which I think breaks down faster. The design breaks down faster than something like this, which is more solid joinery. It is more of a time commitment, but in the video, as you'll see, I tried to show a couple different ways on how to make these for people that don't have a lot of tools. And this is these planter boxes are ephemeral pieces. They're not going to last forever no matter what you do. Even metal ones, I have galvanized metal that has rusted over the years. So keep that in mind when you're putting effort into something like this. I'm just hoping to extend the longevity of these a little bit, but be well aware of the fact, especially if you're working with wood, no matter what you do, they will not last forever outside.
So for this project, I took apart some older raised garden beds and I'm reusing the lumber. So like I said, I have another video up there that shows the cross lap joint. You do not have to watch it in order to build these, but I have a more detailed view and explanation of how I got this lumber ready to be used for this project in that video, so I'm not repeating it. As long as the bulk of the material is rot free, which you can see this is, it will work. But the ends weren't strong enough in order to cut this joint. This is the joint from the other video, so I decided to do something a little bit different. But you can see this is the way those cross laps go together. It's very simple, they're stackable. So basically I just gleaned this ideal from a paver that was actually in the backyard as well, used for a sandbox, which I took apart. They have these openings on the side and you can very easily create rectangular or square shaped objects. These run for about $3.50 a piece, so I didn't want to buy them. They're also convenient. They have a hole in the center so you could put some rebar in there. But you could see, just like my other joint, they're not super tight. There's a little bit of give in these, which will work for this process, which is nice. You don't have to be super accurate with your joints. So the big thing I'm looking for is I'm making sure I'm leaving enough material on my edges and in the center so that these won't break apart after I cut them. So I'm not going any thinner than a 1/2 inch on the side, going an inch deep, and then this is just a compare and construct. I'm making these out of 4x4s, which were actually 3.5 by 3.5. The price point for this project was $21. You can make this out of 6x6 material, but it's a lot more expensive. But if you want deeper cuts, you can do that with that, because obviously they're going to be bigger rectangles on your edges. So to start this project, just like the last one, these two boxes are about 5 foot by a foot. So I cut all of my material down to size. Because I needed a bunch of foot sections, I actually set up a stop on my radial arm saw and I could cut all of these accurately. Within reason, the nice thing about stuff like raised garden beds are, if your project's not perfectly square, it's not that big of a deal. If your joints aren't all identically sized, it's not that big of a deal. Within reason, if you're off by multiple inches, obviously it will not work. So for the corners, I was using newer material. Like I said, these were about $20 to get these two 4x8x6s. I was able to get away with 6 footers because I only needed 12 corners. Now my raised bed stack will be a little less than 12 inches tall, so I cut these sides at about 12 inches, so when I go to install them I could sink a little bit of the foot in the ground and it will make it a little sturdier. Now these are almost like exactly 6 foot long, so I actually made my cuts about an 1/8 inch shy of 12 inches because the blade, you'll lose an 1/8 inch when you cut. So don't make them exact. If your board's exactly the measurement you need, you have to account for the thickness of the blade. So I usually don't draw out all this sort of stuff in the shop, but because this is an informational video I did, I'm basically just cutting 2 really thick dados on these at the measurements I pointed out in the beginning through the boards. And then my boards will fit in. Now these pressure treated boards are actually a little thicker than 1.5 inches. My reclaimed wood was a little bit thinner, so just make sure you measure before making all these cuts. I raised the blade to 1 inch. You could see I just used a mark on a piece of wood to get that inch. And the first way I'm going to demonstrate how to do this is with a series of kerf cuts on the table saw. So just like the last video, my first 2 cuts are the most important. They're going to designate the edges of where my joint will be. So I spend the time to line up that outside cut. Now, even though this isn't centered, I could still cut both of these without moving the fence. It's a matter of just flipping it and rotating the board to get those 2 cuts. You can see what they look like there. And now what I'm going to do is reset the fence for my other 2 marks and do the exact same thing. So that is basically what that cut looks like. Now if you're not used to pressure treated wood, this stuff is soaked in chemicals. So as it dries, it will crack and check. So that is something to be expected when using boards like this. But you can see I just lined it up with my other edge. I could send it through. It's a little hard to see because I have it so zoomed in, but at this point I could rotate it and then flip it around and I'll have that exact same cut. I did this for all of my pieces. It was just a matter of making that first cut, rotating it and flipping it, and then it was aligned for the perfect cut. And then I could send that through as well. So now I have my 2 marks on the outside that designate the width of the cut, and now I have to remove the material in the middle. The easiest way to do this is to just keep making curves. You can see by squeezing it that that joint is not going to give. The edges look pretty thin, but they still have enough meat on there to hold everything together. Same thing with the middle. So for the kerf cuts in the middle, it's not important with the spacing of these. The thinner you cut these, the easier it will be to remove the material. Pressure treated, like I said, it has chemicals in it, so the wood's kind of rubbery to work with to start with. Some people don't like to use their tools with this because they will gunk up the blades pretty quickly because of the wetness. Because I'm only doing one project, cutting a couple boards, I will use my tools, but that is something to think about. If you leave this stuff sitting overnight on your cast iron tools, which I did, and I do almost every time I use it by accident, it will leave a rust mark. That's how wet it is. But you can see I'm just cutting a series of curves, rotating and flipping so I could cut both joints with the same setup, moving the fence, and then cutting again until I have a series of curves that I can then break out with a chisel. So that is what that is going to look like. I followed my marks pretty clearly. Now I know that some of my lines look uneven. I mentioned this in the other video. Dimensional lumber, especially pressure treated wood, is not going to be square, and it's going to be varying thicknesses throughout the board. Like I said, one of the nice things about both these designs are that will not really affect your finished product. But if you notice my lines don't look square on the top of the board, that's because when I was referencing off of them with my square, the sides weren't perfectly square. So I could remove those curves with a chisel. There's usually a little bit of material left over, and I could just go clean up the bottom of this with a chisel, and then I'll have my two openings there. So that is what that finished joint looks like. And then I could slide my 2 boards in. Now you can make these as long as you want, but like I said, I'm only stacking 2, and then you can see there's a little bit left at the top, and then once these are finished, that will be sunken into the ground to hide that. So then for the next joint, I'm going to be using the circular saw. I tried to pick tools that I knew a lot of people, especially DIYers, have. Same thing. I have the blade set to 1 inch, so it will go down exactly 1 inch. I made my marks, and the first 2 cuts are the most important. I'm going to just line up the blade and go through very slowly. If you're not great at freehand cutting on a circular saw, they do make jigs, or you can even make a homemade jig that will help you cut straight lines. I'm obviously not as accurate as a table saw, but I can cut these accurately enough that I don't have to use a jig. So just going through the 2 sides, and then same process. I remove the material in the middle by cutting a series of curves. These I can cut really quickly because, like I said, they don't have to be straight. They just have to be thin enough that I can break them off with a chisel. And like I said in the intro, I am planning on releasing another video that will discuss pressure treated wood, what stain and finish I'm putting on these, all that sort of stuff. Questions that I was getting in the comments that just would make these videos too long to add to it. So this is just going to be about how to build these. Now if you have a knot in your board like I do on that one, they're usually a little bit tougher to remove the kerf, so you could chisel out from the end as well. So this is with the circular saw, and same exact result. That's what that's going to look like. I do like the look of the older material. Now for DIYers, the next is a specialty tool. It's a Dado stack. It's basically 1/8 inch blades with chippers in the middle. So when you stack these all together, you can get varying thicknesses that you can cut out, and those are either going to be in the form of rabbits and dados. These are not super inexpensive. A good one's going to be about $100, but I got that set at Lowe's on sale for like 25 bucks, and I've been using it for almost 10 years now. It's an extremely versatile tool to have in the shop. I use it on almost every project. Now the rest of these I'm cutting with the Dado stack because it is by far going to be the fastest way to do this. So all I'm doing is going through and putting reference marks for my original cut on the table saw on all of my boards. I do that. They're not super accurate. They're just showing the alignment, and that is because when you're cutting multiples, I think at this point I have 10 to do, it can get really confusing. So I'm just putting those marks on the edge using that original board, just so that my eye has a reference mark for all the flipping and twisting you have to do on these. This is the exact same process as the first process, but you're just removing a lot more material at once. Now taking an inch pass with the Dado stack is a pretty heavy pass. Sometimes I do these in sets of 2, but I decided to go with the full cut on this one so I didn't have to send all these boards through multiple times. So you can see I'm just sending them through, and same process, twisting and flipping them around so I can do the first 2 cuts at the same time. If that is confusing, you will notice that the second cut is always aligned to the top left-hand side. Once I have that first cut, I can go through and line up the second cut in the exact same process. Send it through, rotate it, and flip it around, and send it through again. Now, I have about a 5/8 inch stack on here. I think the thickest I can go with this is a little over 1 inch. I didn't do 3/4 because, like I said, my boards are thicker than 1.5 inches, so I would have had to do 2 passes no matter what I did. And because I am cutting out so much, 1 inch at a time, the thinner Dado stack will make the cut a little bit easier. Ignore some of the marks on the end of these boards. I drew this out a couple different ways before I started the project. And then for the last cut, I can remove that little flange in the middle. All these are being cut the exact same way using those reference marks. So I could send it through, twist it and flip it, and then it lines up perfectly, and send it through again. You can see how much faster this is. I cut all these boards, it was 10 of them at this point, in less than a half an hour. So this is even easier to do, in my opinion, than the cross laps. Super simple process. I like things, especially like this. I will be putting some dowels in these at the end of the day, which will be in that last video. But these planter boxes hold themselves together without any hardware. So that is what my stack looks like once it was all said and done. And then I already had all my boards pre-cut, so it's just a matter of putting them together. You can see the dado stack, the circular saw, and the table saw with the kerfs all look the same. Now you can technically make something like this with a router, but honestly it would take forever, so I didn't show that process. But you can see all my boards slide in place. Like I said, I'm really happy with the look of the reclaimed boards. Can slide my edges on, and I know I've said it before, but I'm going to repeat it. There will be a third video where I will discuss pressure treated wood finish, how I permanently attach all these, all that sort of stuff for people that have those sorts of questions. But those are my beds. And then once again, just a close-up of the set of 3 I have. And these are being fit into a specific size space, which is why they are the size that they are. So this is the beginning of the new footage, and like I said, I decided I'm probably gonna have to put some sort of netting over these at some point, and the easiest way to do that is to put a notch on these corners so I could slide either conduit, I don't really want to use PVC, or even wooden squares in the corners, and make it easier to attach netting. All I did was set my blade at 3/4 of an inch tall and my fence at 3/4 of an inch away, so I made a 3/4 inch notch. Super simple little update to this, and then it's going to make attaching all that other stuff easy. Since these don't hold themselves together like the cross laps, in order to move them around, I just use ratchet straps to keep them together. And like I said, I am doweling these in place. Putting a couple dowels in these will hold this whole thing together permanently. So this is a 3/8 inch drill bit, because I had 3/8 inch dowels around the shop. So I'm just putting those dowels in place. I have a little funnel that I use to coat the ends of these, which works out quite nicely. I just pre-drill a hole and I can put these in. Now this isn't necessarily a structural design. If you want to make these structural, I would suggest longer dowels, probably thicker dowels, and a little bit of a different design. These are just pegged in place dowels. It's going to hold the corners to the pressure treated wood on the inside. That is the main purpose of these, especially once these are full of dirt. They're not really going to move around on you, but unlike the cross laps, these don't hold themselves together. So this was how I accounted for that. Now, if you're not good at hand drilling, it doesn't really matter on something like this because it's strapped in place. It's not going to move around on you. And a little bit of an angle, you could see I was drilling it at a little bit of an angle, is actually beneficial because it will be harder for it to come apart. I put those in place, let them dry overnight, can take the straps off. You can see they're all held together. And then all I'm doing to fit them in place, because I have the little foot at the bottom, is digging out a little bit of my base, and they'll set in place. And then that is what all those finished pieces in place look like. You could see I put some finish on the outside of these, not on the inside. That's a really important difference. And I'm most likely going to upload a final video discussing very basic information about pressure treated, what to coat the inside and outside with, that sort of information. I don't have a timeline for that video yet, but